In Bridgerton Season 1, the mystery of Lady Whistledown's true identity captivated viewers, culminating in the shocking reveal that Penelope Featherington was the sharp-tongued columnist all along. This article highlights 10 subtle clues that foreshadowed Penelope's secret role, from her early scenes holding a quill to her sly remarks and strategic absences at key moments. These hints, often overlooked during a first watch, cleverly pointed to her as the author behind the scandalous society papers, showcasing her wit, observational skills, and hidden boldness long before her public confession in Season 3. Bridgerton, 10 clues you might have missed about Lady Whistledown's identity. Netflix's Bridgerton might be named after the 8 Bridgerton siblings, whose romances are the show's major focus, but make no mistake, the series is just as much about Lady Whistledown. It is, after all, through the anonymous writers, voiced by Julie Andrews, juicy newsletter that the story unfolds. Throughout the first season, characters and viewers alike were captivated by the mystery surrounding the author's identity. Although audiences learned it was none other than Penelope Featherington, Nicola Coughlan, in the finale, none of the characters had it figured out until Eloise's discovery at the end of Season 2. As for the 10, they had to wait until Season 3's conclusion, when Penelope decides to publicly come forward as the scribe at her sister's ball, after being blackmailed by Cressida Cooper, Jessica Madsen. Before fans were hit with the revelation about the true identity of the mysterious columnist, they were presented with many hints and Easter eggs along the way. Some were obvious, like Whistledown's reporting of Marina's pregnancy and her lack of coverage of the Queen's luncheon. However, there were others that were easy to miss. While you watch other historical romances available on Netflix in anticipation of Season 4, have some fun reading about these 10 clues you likely missed in Season 1 that pointed to Lady Whistledown's identity. 10. Penn holds a quill in the show's first scene. The first scene in the debut episode of Bridgerton features the Featherington ladies getting ready for their presentations to Queen Charlotte, Golda Rocheville, as is custom prior to the social season. As Portia, Polly Walker, has her eldest daughter, Prudence, Bessie Carter, forcefully squeezed into a corset, Penelope holds a quill in the background. The camera then briefly zeroes in on Penn, with the feather visible in her hand, as Lady Whistledown's first voiceover continues. During a first watch, it's easily unnoticeable, but devoted fans looking for clues during a second viewing may have noticed it. The quill isn't the only clue given during that first minute. During the scene, Whistledown describes Portia as a tasteless, tactless mama, which mirrors Penelope's feelings towards her mother as the season progresses. Transitioning to the Bridgerton house, she describes the family in the admiring way Penelope sees them and talks about them throughout the season, a shockingly prolific family noted for its bounty of perfectly handsome sons and perfectly beautiful daughters. 9. The double Lord Byron reference. After the opening credits in the first episode, Lady Whistledown closes the introduction to her column. Signing off, she says, "It has been said that, of all bitches dead or alive, a scribbling woman is the most canine. If that should be true, then this author would like to show you her teeth." The first sentence references a quote from the famous poet Lord Byron, which he wrote in a letter to John Kem Hobhouse in 1812, targeting author Anna Seward. Later on in the episode, Byron is referenced once again. After catching the eye of numerous gentlemen at Lady Danbury's ball, a pack of suitors competing for Marina's, Ruby Walker, affection stormed the Featherington house the next day. One of them reads some particularly bad poetry he wrote for her. Colin, Luke Newton, comments to Penelope, "A most wretched sonnet, indeed." She replies, "Lord Byron he is not," providing the audience a hint that went over the head of most. 8. Eloise mentions Penelope in the first newsletter scene. The first 10 minutes of Bridgerton were full of clues. In another hint, Eloise mentions her best friend at the first sight of Whistledown's newsletter. Holding the salacious column as Daphne, Phoebe Dynevor, is fitted into a dress, Eloise mentions her best friend in dialogue, saying, "I should need to go and visit with Penelope." It turned out to be no coincidence that the first time any character in the show is seen with the column in hand Penelope's name was mentioned. 2 scenes that say plenty. The subtle nod to the secret author was a telling but easily missed clue, seeing that it only happened within the series' first 10 minutes, and weren't yet looking for hints. In retrospect, it feels obviously deliberate, especially with the subsequent scene in mind. Switching over to the Featheringtons, Penelope is seen sitting by a window with a book in hand, once again highlighting the fact that she's well-read, a rarity among young ladies at the time. 7. Lady Whistledown's mistake. Another clue instantly follows the previous one. When the focus shifts to the Featheringtons, Portia and her daughters are in her sitting room with Lady Araminta Croper, Joanna Bobin. The Featherington matriarch is incensed at Whistledown's praise of Daphne and speculates that Viscountess Violet Bridgerton, Ruth Gemmell, herself is the author behind the scandal sheet. To emphasize that Whistledown is not to be trusted, she points out the writer's error in reporting that only 3 girls from her household would make their debut. An act of wishful thinking. Immediately after, Penelope suggests that she sit the season out, unless you shall like to have only 3 young ladies under your care. I should gladly sit this season out. It turned out to be no mistake, but rather an expression of Penelope's hopes that there was a possibility she could delay her debut. Later on, she even goes on to indicate that Whistledown intentionally published the wrong information to indicate that Penn would likely go unnoticed, reflecting her feelings throughout the first season of feeling invisible and unworthy. 6. Daphne's first dance with the Duke of Hastings. There were so many clues in Bridgerton's premiere alone. The last happens near the end of the episode at the outdoor Vauxhall Ball. After Daphne and Simon, Regine Page, agree to fake a courtship to make her desirable to other men and make him appear unavailable, they walk hand in hand to the dance floor. Penelope is the first main character to lay eyes on them, with the camera capturing her in the frame a few times throughout the moment. As Simon dips Daphne during their dance, the camera zooms out, and Penn can once again be seen in the shot. More than just a wallflower. Once Whistledown's voiceover begins, reporting the most wonderful coup of the season, the camera zeroes in on Penelope intently watching Daphne and the Duke from the sidelines, hinting that she's the one penning the newsletter. It's just one of many instances Penelope is seen in the background during an event Whistledown would go on to report, and while the author narrates her gossip column. Just as Eloise points out later in the season, the anonymous writer is a single woman of means, who would be invited to all the events but not paid any attention. 5. Penn assures Eloise that Whistledown's identity is protected. In An Affair of Honor, the season's 4th episode, Eloise is getting more caught up in the mystery of the anonymous writer, spending the whole hour determined to find her. While she and Penelope walk around town and spend time at the market, she praises Whistledown for having found a way to create independence for herself, calling her a brilliant woman of business who fools the entire town whilst pocketing their money. Her best friend can't help but proudly smile, holding her secret, unbeknownst to both Eloise and the audience. One of many times Penn discourages Eloise from her mission. As their conversation continues, Eloise mentions her plan to find her so that they can meet her. Lady Whistledown's identity is quite protected, Penelope replies confidently. The first time around, her response didn't register, but in hindsight it was a very obvious hint, indicating that Penelope wasn't worried about being discovered. It wasn't the only instance she displayed disinterest in Eloise's curiosity about Whistledown, nor the first time she discouraged her from her investigation. In retrospect, there were many red flags. 4. Penn's comments on Lady Trobridge's possible affair. The 10 attends a ball thrown by the widowed Lady Trobridge halfway through the 4th episode. As Colin and Penelope indulge in playful conversion, he makes a quip about the fussy Trobridge baby throwing a tantrum, going on to remark, "It's lucky the lady produced an heir before the old earl croaked, to which Penelope responds, "Lucky indeed." But do you not think the boy bears a passing resemblance to Lady Trobridge's footman? Shocked by the sweet, demure Penelope's comment, he teasingly calls her a barb. A low-key savage. Throughout the first season, Penelope appeared as a wallflower, but she was so much more than that. As she stood back during every social event, her eyes were always watching and her ears were always perked up. Nothing got past her. At first glance, this scene with Colin seemed like nothing more than an inconsequential witty exchange, but it exposed a lot about Penelope, like her snarky, mischievous side. It showed that she dialed into the gossip around town. Her sharp tongue came on display, but no one, not even viewers, considered the usually gentle and quiet Penelope a suspect. 3. Penn holds back a giggle when Eloise mentions forcing a retraction. At first, Eloise holds a strong admiration for Whistledown, viewing her as someone fearless, independent, and outspoken. Like the famous anonymous columnist, she longs to rebel against society. That changes a bit after Whistledown outs Marina's pregnancy, cementing the Featheringtons as social pariahs. Eloise points out to her mother, Penelope and her sisters did nothing wrong, but their reputations are destroyed, angered that the anonymous writer has ruined people so dear to her. Unbeknownst to her, it was Penn herself who caused the damage, in an effort to save Colin from the betrayal and a marriage built on entrapment. A painful, but necessary choice for Penelope. After the damage it has caused her friend's family, Eloise remains more determined than ever to discover the author's true identity, who, she believes, has gone too far this time. Just as Portia and her daughters are turned away at Queen Charlotte's luncheon in the 7th episode, Eloise pulls Penn aside to check on her. When we uncover Whistledown's identity, we will convince her to publish a retraction and restore your family's reputation, Eloise tells her. Penn smiles widely, evidently trying her best to hold back a giggle from escaping. She had no regrets about what she had published, no matter how much it had hurt her family. Additionally, she remained ever so confident that Eloise wouldn't unmask her, finding it cute that she thought she could. 2. Penn briefly panics when Eloise claims she uncovered Whistledown's identity. Throughout most of Season 1, while other ladies are concerned about fashion and finding a husband, Eloise works hard to find Whistledown, forming various theories along the way. At one point, she suspects even her family's housekeeper, Mrs. Wilson, Geraldine Alexander, of being the writer, rummaging through her belongings, only to get caught and set straight. In the finale, she's convinced it's the modiste, Genevieve Delacroix, Catherine Drysdale. As someone who had access to all the fine ladies in the ton, and who could overhear conversations, it made sense, but she was way off. A look of fear. Certain she has gotten to the bottom of the mystery, she pulls Penn aside to share the major news. When she tells her that she has finally found her, Penelope is startled, panic and worry flash across her face, shocked and sure she has been discovered. Once Eloise names Madame Delacroix, her expression shifts to one of relief. She suspiciously doesn't follow up with any questions. 1. Whistledown's carriage men wear the Featherington colors. On the night of the Hastings ball, Eloise prepares to approach Queen Charlotte about the Whistledown investigation. On her way, she runs into Penelope, who encourages her not to miss her chance. Penn then leaves the ball early, presumably upset by the news of Colin's travels. Later, the audience would find out she actually fled the party to drop off the next day's newsletter at the printing press. A clue easy to miss. When Eloise discovers that Queen Charlotte has worked out which printing press Whistledown delivers her writings to, she learns of the plan to unmask and seize her. Still under the belief that it's Genevieve, she rushes to warn the author of the impending trap. Upon arriving, she doesn't catch a good glimpse of the columnist, but she is able to warn her. Whistledown's carriage men are wearing the Featherington colors, hues of green and yellow. It's easy to miss in the dark without the camera focusing on them, but there was the answer. Just 20 minutes later, the end of the finale would reveal to the audience that Penelope had been Whistledown all along, making it one of the show's best episodes.